Carvana. You've seen the commercials, you've seen the vending machines, and you probably know someone that's worked with them in the past, like this guy, Dennis, who bought a car from Carvana only to have it repossessed because it was actually reported stolen. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of problems the Amazon for used car buying is facing today. In August 2021, the company was worth over $30 billion. Once the Fortune 500 darling, their stock prices dropped 97% seemingly overnight, and we've now uncovered there are thousands of unhappy customers. So, how did Carvana rise almost as fast as it fell, and have to resort to the lowly criminal acts of selling stolen cars, cars with undisclosed accident history, cars in disrepair, all while making a few early investors, including a convicted felon, filthy rich? This is the story of Carvana. Founded in 2012 by car enthusiast Ernie Garcia III and Ryan Keaton, with the express goal of completely rewriting the script on the way consumers buy and sell cars. It's pretty clear the traditional dealership experience isn't a particularly fun one. Carvana quickly became known for its easy-to-use online shopping style process, which allowed customers to search a database with thousands of cars and finance their dream ride without ever having to leave their homes, or worse, deal with a salesman. In 2017, Carvana went public and was valued at $5 billion, but the Wall Street darling was hiding some pretty dark secrets. The CEO, Ernie Garcia III, has a dad. This guy, Ernie Garcia II, a billionaire from the used car sector who has a very checkered past. He's the largest shareholder of Carvana, and also a convicted felon. Garcia II is a huge fan of subprime loans. You've seen them, those car dealerships that advertise no credit, no problem. Well, those buy here, pay here schemes aren't the heroes you think they are. They prey on customers that have the highest chance of defaulting on a loan, so they can repossess the car and sell it again. And if by some miracle the payments keep rolling in, they absolutely rake in the cash due to the insane interest rates. Carvana's bread and butter business was, you guessed it, subprime lending. But let's take a step back to the decade when Pokemon was the rage, the Furby was a thing, and Garcia II broke the law. Back in the 1990s, Garcia II, the Lincoln Savings loan figure, pled guilty to bank fraud. Carvana CEO's father admits acting to help the thrift hide its ownership of some risky desert land in Arizona. TLDR, it's called straw borrowing. It's a white-collar scheme where an individual uses a fake name, social security number, and credit history to hide the identity of the organizers of a for-profit mortgage fraud loan scheme. You know, like a scarecrow. It looks like a person, but it's really just straw. And this scheme was the straw that broke the camel's back for Ernie, because he got caught getting a $30 million line of credit using this strategy. But what's actually even more eye-opening is what he did after. See, he bought this small retail car chain called the Ugly Duckling for less than $1 million. And the business model was simple: prey on the poor with subprime loans. Essentially, buy used cars for around $3,800 and sell them for around $7,300, and then charge as much as 30% interest on the loan. Over the course of the loan, you'd pay almost $7,000 in just interest, bringing a total price of over $14,000 for your $7,300 car. That $6,843 was pure profit for the bank and Mr. Garcia, and almost everyone that gets this type of loan has low income, straight up preying on the poor. Despite his unattractive past, Garcia took Ugly Duckling public and raised over $170 million, but he only owned 56% of the company. He decided he wanted the other 44, and by doing so, it landed him in a very familiar place: the courthouse. He was pinned with no less than 6 shareholder lawsuits for abusing his position to profit from Ugly Duckling assets. He renamed it Drive Time, and it became the auto dealer and finance option for anyone with less than perfect credit. By 2017, it was bringing in over $2.5 billion annually with high profit margins, mostly thanks to those subprime loans. And that gave his son, Ernie Garcia III, an idea. The idea to build Carvana. It'll come as no surprise, Carvana was built on subprime lending. It fronts as an easy way for you to buy or sell your car, but the actual business is in the financing. Carvana got rid of us having to deal with sleazy salespeople, which was great. But what they didn't predict is we didn't really all want car vending machines. Carvana continued growing, and then the pandemic happened. The pandemic poured rocket fuel on the company's success, and since their business wasn't really in buying and selling cars, that was just the vehicle, pun intended, to get people into subprime loans. Carvana was charging buyers up to 28% in interest. In 2019, their revenue was just under $4 billion. 2020, $5.5, and by 2021, it was a whopping $12.8 billion. And to keep up with demand, they started buying up cars at record pace and record price. I sold my car to Carvana in March. They offered me $18,000 for a 7-year-old car that had a KBB value of just $8,000. The local dealer laughed when I told them the offer, stating there's no way they would actually pay that. Carvana came, looked it over, and we signed the paperwork. I had the money in my account the same minute. I don't understand how or why they paid so much for my car when they were actively selling the same car in better condition with less miles for just $12,000. Carvana was paying double, even triple what people initially paid for their used cars, just so they could resell them for what they paid and make money on those subprime loans. The company is and was little more than a bank disguised as an auto broker, and their 150-point inspection was, for the most part, complete bogus. And their promise, whatever your budget will drive you happy, is too good to be true. That's how a Denver man named Dennis purchased a stolen, damaged car he thought had a clean title. Dennis said at first he thought it was the most enjoyable car buying experience that he's ever had. But then, after watching his car be towed away by the police, he was humiliated. Yes, that car went through the 150-point inspection, and not only did they not find it being stolen from Hertz Rental 7 months prior, but they didn't find the shoddy repairs performed after the major wreck it was in. This is just one of the many complaints, including violations in Michigan, North Carolina, California, and fielding 900 formal complaints directly to the BBB, more than double that of CarMax. Through all this, their revenue was up almost 200%. And while Carvana's CEO was busy sweeping all the bad news under the rug, his dad was secretly selling off his majority stake in the company. Major shareholders of a company can take advantage of what's called a 10b5-1 plan, which is exactly what Ernie Garcia II did. In a nutshell, the rule allows insiders of publicly traded corporations like Carvana to set up a trading plan for the stocks they own. Corporate executives use it to avoid accusations of insider trading. The C-levels like Ernie's son, his co-founders Ben Huston and Ryan Keaton knew what was going on. They were careening towards bankruptcy, but it was Ernie's dad that took advantage. Strategically, behind the guard of 10B, sold off $3.6 billion worth of stock, timing his stock sales to perfection. To put this in perspective, the only people that had sold more stock than Garcia II since the start of 2020 were Bezos, Zuck, and members of the Walton family. And he did it all as a wolf in sheep's clothing. Shortly after the sell-off, Carvana acquired ADESA US for $2.2 billion to jumpstart their used car sales. And all this led to a highly leveraged balance sheet, which put the company in a very vulnerable position, should the unlikely scenario of an economy tipping into a downturn and cooling used car market happen, which is exactly what's happening now. As a result, Carvana stock has dropped an unprecedented 98%, seemingly overnight. Both Ernest Garcia II and III are fathers, but only one dad got rich. Like, really nauseatingly rich in this whole fiasco. Leveraging his quote-unquote background, the elder Garcia was able to hide behind the law and silently sell off a huge portion of stock during Carvana's peak, all while his son was left holding the bag, publicly losing his fortune that plunged 98%, from $6.7 billion to $119 million in a matter of months. Funny enough, the only person that's lost more is Sam Bankman-Fried. Sometimes you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but that old dog used the ones he already knew to quietly become one of the richest dads in the world. All while his son, relatively speaking, became the poor dad in comparison. Carvana eventually filed for bankruptcy in 2021, and while the company is still alive and somehow still selling cars, they're billions of dollars in debt, and their customer base is, for obvious reasons, at an all-time low. Will Carvana pull out of this, fix everything wrong with the company, start operating with integrity and sound business practices? That remains to be seen. While I feel for the thousands of people affected by this whole thing, perhaps as it turns out, buying a used car out of a vending machine isn't the best idea after all. Thank you all so much for watching. We hope you found this interesting and maybe even enjoyable. Stay tuned for more automotive stories just like this one coming along very soon.